Hi everybody, welcome back to our Combating Consensus video column, something we fired up last week and chose three teams that public opinion was behind leading into the game on straight picks, but was poorly placed. Last week we did pretty well, going 2-1 in that segment, correctly backing the Bengals going into Washington and toppling the Redskins, and also Houston beating Denver at Mile High Stadium. We did miss on the Patriots over the Ravens, but as I sit here in my Pats shirt, I feel pretty confident in taking that shot against the consensus. It was a close game, could have gone either way. In fact, New England led all game and just let it get away towards the end. So I feel okay taking that chance. I'll take a 2-1 record in games that I'm picking against everyone on anyhow. And we've got three more this week. Hopefully we go 2-1, or I see a conceivable 3-0 set coming our way. So I want to dive right into that. And the first game that I have selected is San Diego at 62% of the public picking them going to KC and beating a divisional rival. I think it's important for us to know that the home team has won every game in this series in consecutive seasons, so they're each 2-2 with the home teams holding serve, and San Diego's actually 4-11 in their last 15 games in Kansas City, so it's hostile territory. It's an environment that they don't like playing in. I think really we're giving San Diego a lot of credit for winning 2 games early in the season against bad teams. We saw what happened when they matched up against a quality opponent last week when they faced the Falcons, and I expect a similar result this week. I'm not putting KC on the same tier as Atlanta, of course, but I am putting them pretty close to the tier that San Diego is on, if not above it, and I think because of that, it's easy to give the edge to the home team here. San Diego has been impressive against the run, and of course, we've got to expect that KC's game plan is going to feature a lot of Jamaal Charles after the effort he's coming off of in New Orleans, but I think because of that effort, we have to feel pretty good about Charles being able to run the ball effectively or work the screen game effectively against just about anybody. He came out of that game feeling good, obviously, and also telling everyone that he feels more confident in his surgically repaired knee than he did prior to the contest, and I think that's going to be big for him, for his fantasy owners, and for his football team going forward, and I think it's going to pay off this week. Now, of course, with the Saints at 0-3 and their opponents having a combined 0-6 records other than the games they beat them in, it doesn't take a whole lot to beat them, we know, but it did take a lot of courage or of perseverance for Kansas City to outscore them 14-0 in the fourth quarter and overtime and come away with the win last week. And I think what we saw there was the team that really turned it on late last season, playing for Coach Romeo Crennel. I think he's turned the light switch on for them now again, and I think that's going to carry over against the Chargers this week. I watched Phillip Rivers pretty closely in the preseason and was really concerned about his passing in general and about his deep strike. Looked like the ball was a little Peyton Manning wobbly-esque, if you will. Now, in the first 2 games of the season, it looked like he was going to prove me wrong as he played pretty efficient football, was able to hit targets on key third downs. But last week, again, the Phillip Rivers that threw 20-some-odd picks in 2011 kind of reared his head again. Impressed with Thomas Dakoud of Atlanta and his 3 turnovers, but that means that San Diego coughed the ball up that many times, and I think that that's something that they may run the risk of doing again this week against Kansas City. Now, their secondary only has 1 interception this season, but it is still a pretty strong unit, and I think that they can win the turnover battle in this game, combine that again with their home field advantage, and I think that this opportunistic defense led by an offense that can get the job done should be able to come away with the win at home, so I'm ready to pick Kansas City to beat San Diego despite the consensus suggesting otherwise. I'm going to move right on and go ahead and pick against Washington again. They're on the road. We've got about 61% of the public backing them in a straight pick against Tampa Bay. Of course, there's reason to like Washington. We're talking about the top scoring offense in the league, but they're heading into Tampa Bay to face a defense that is tasked with keeping their team in the game. Of course, this is their first game back at home after a 2-game road trip where they started the season in their home field, holding Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers in check pretty well and coming away with a win. I don't like picking them against the Redskins for 2 weeks in a row because I continue to be impressed with Robert Griffin III like everybody else, but I stand by the fact that I think the public opinion on this game is really being buoyed by that, by people enjoying watching Griffin, believing in him, and liking what they've seen out of the rookie so far. But again, I said it last week, I'll say it again, he's not the whole team, and that hype does not necessarily dictate a win. Their defense, most importantly, continues to be suspect. They've allowed a 300-yard passer 3 times. In every game they played this season, the opposing quarterback has had a great game against them. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting Josh Freeman to post those kind of numbers, but I am suggesting that against this secondary, there's going to be holes. He should have the opportunity to link up with Vincent Jackson a couple of times over the middle of the field, maybe on some deep routes, and generally keep the chains moving for the Tampa offense. What that's going to do is keep Washington off the field. It's going to allow Tampa to hopefully build a bit of a lead here and be able to come away with the win. Now again, Griffin's worked well with Leonard Hankerson, Santana Moss, and the other receivers in the absence of Pierre Garçon, but the Redskins still would clearly like to have their number 1 guy in the field. He's banged up again, still nursing the foot issue. He's got a questionable tag this week, which beats the doubtful one he carried last week, but there's still no lock to think that he's going to play in this game, and if he does, he's going to be at less than 100%, and as a result, I'm willing to give the Bucs the edge that they obviously have, I think, on defense, also the edge in the receiving game, and the edge with their running back and Doug Martin, who hasn't totally got it going yet, but who should be able to carry the ball against a depleted front 4 in Washington. And I just don't see Griffin being able to make up the difference there. As evidenced by their loss to the Rams earlier this season, this young Redskins team doesn't really travel well, and I think that's going to continue against Tampa Bay's defense at home. I just think that if Alfred Morris isn't going to be able to get it going against a Tampa club that leads the league in rushing defense, Robert Griffin might struggle. That's why I think we're going to see the win getting notched for Tampa Bay. They'll hold serve at the house this week. Move on now to the final game that I've picked, and it sees me picking against 77% of public opinion, and that's, again, on the road, Washington against Philadelphia, New York against Philadelphia in the Sunday night game. There's a lot of reason to like the Giants. They're playing good football this season. They're coming off a great primetime matchup against Carolina, and the Eagles are not coming off such a good matchup, and really not a great start to the season. They're 2-1, but they just barely got by in their first 2 games. However, they are 7-1 in their last 8 games against the Giants, and they did drop 1 game at home to them last season, but their home record generally is very good against the G-Men, and I think that that's going to continue at Lincoln Financial Field this weekend. Now, the Eagles did look awful against the Cardinals on the road last week, but they just ran into a hot defense on home turf, I feel. Plus, if you take away the 14-point swing at the end of the first half, which really was the result of a Vic fumble that led to a 90-plus yard touchdown by the Cardinals and really changed the dynamic of that game, then this really was a lot closer than the box score shows. And let's not forget, including last week's loss to the Cardinals, the Eagles are still 6-1 in their last 7 games. So this is a team that knows how to win. It's a team that I expect to be able to do so in the division at home. That's going to take a few things, and one of those things is going to be Michael Vick and his coaches realizing that he's taking just as many hits when he's sitting in the pocket as he is when he's out and about scrambling, and sometimes they look like more dangerous hits. So I think it takes all of them realizing that and being able and willing to run the ball against a Giants defense that a quarterback should be able to run against. The Giants are going to, of course, bring a lot of pressure, but we've seen Vic be able to escape that and even turn it against them in the past. And again, as long as the game plan and the coaching leading up to it allows for it, I think you'll see Vic move around a bit, try to get off his spot on purpose, and maybe find a few holes to run against the Giants. They've also got Jeremy Maclin back on the field this week. I like that a lot, while Hakeem Nicks is sidelined again for the Giants. Of course, Ramses Barden filled in admirably last week, but they'd still like to have their marquee receiver in the matchup against a team with a pretty good secondary. This week, I think we do see Hickson coming back for the Giants, which means that Barden's going to likely line up in the slot. He'll get some good opportunities against Philly's nickel corner, but again, it's not a good move for their depth. It's not a good move for their receiving core, and I think it will lead to some problems for New York against Philadelphia. And now, in their only home game this season, we don't have a big sample to draw on here, but it's worth noting that the Eagles allowed just 60 yards rushing on the ground, and I think that suggests good things for their ability to hold Andre Brown and Ahmad Bradshaw in check for the Giants, while hopefully they get LaShawn McCoy running the ball well, again as part of a sensible game plan this week laid out by Andy Reid and the rest of the coaching staff. I like Philly to do that, to balance out the play calling against the Giants, as this is something that they've historically done against them, against their heavy pass rush, and I feel good about what the Eagles are bringing to this game. I like them to be able to win the divisional contest at home, and particularly I like, as long as he's upright, Mike Vick to do some good work against the Giants secondary. He has had a couple of good passing efforts, and I think that he'll be able to continue that again this week, and all of that I think leads to an Eagles win. So there are 3 more picks for you this week. Take it for what you will. But we've got 3 home teams going against public consensus, which is kind of what you like to do, is get behind those teams at home, particularly the way we've seen games go this season. We've got KC managing to hold off the Chargers. We've got Tampa beating upstart QB Robert Griffin in Washington. And we've got Philadelphia going really with just 23% of other pickers in this game to beat the Giants and to take control of the NFC East. Check in with me on Monday. We'll see how we did, and we'll be back to combat the consensus opinion next week as well. Thanks a lot.